Math is a wonderful thing. Math is a really cool thing.
Alright, let's try to generalize how to find the domain and range of a parabola that opens up or down. So I have here two parabolas. The first parabola opens upward and the second parabola opens downward. So any parabola that opens up or down, the domain is always all real numbers. Again, it is because if you are going to trace your function, the shadow on the x-axis will be located here. So as you trace this, the shadow on the x-axis will be here. Now, this is not the end of our graph. We can still extend this all the way up. And as you continue to trace your function here, the shadow on the x-axis will be here. And as you continue, eventually the shadow is going to cover the entire x-axis. That's why whenever a parabola opens up or down, the domain is always all real numbers. Now for a parabola that opens left or right, the range is always all real numbers. With the same reasoning, so as I trace my function here, shadow starts here to here. Now as I continue to trace my function, the shadow on the y-axis will be here to here. But since I have an arrow, we will extend this indefinitely. And as we trace our function, the shadow will be here all the way up. Similarly, if I'm going to trace my function here, the shadow will be from here all the way down here. As you continue tracing your function, shadow will be from here all the way here. But again, we need to extend. We can extend our um, graph. And as we trace our extension, the shadow will be from here all the way here. And as you can see, as we try to extend our function, the shadow will eventually cover the entire y-axis. That's why the range of a parabola that opens left or right is always real numbers. Okay, now what about the range of a parabola that opens up or down? For a parabola that opens up and down, we just need to identify either the minimum point or the maximum point. So this is our minimum point. So if a parabola opens up, we have the minimum point. Now if the parabola opens downward, the minimum point, or in this case, it is no longer a minimum point, but it is now the maximum point. Now this point here, the minimum or the maximum, is what we call vertex of the parabola. So once you know the y value on the vertex, you'll be able to identify your range right away. So in this case, the y value on this point, the vertex, is 1, 2, 3, 4. It's negative 4. So the range starts here, negative 4, all the way up, or positive infinity. So how do we describe these points? It will be y greater than or equal to negative 4. Now if we have the maximum, we still have to find the y value on your vertex. So the y value here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But since the parabola is opening downwards, the shadow starts at 8 going to the negative infinity. So how are we going to describe all of these points? It will be y. All of these points are less than 8. But since this point is included, it's part of the graph, I should have a line under here. Okay? Now what if we have a parabola that opens to the right? Now again, we said that the range is always all real numbers. How do we find the domain? To find the domain, just look at the x value of your vertex. So this is our vertex, and the x value here is -4. As you trace your function, your shadow on the x-axis starts at -4 all the way to the positive infinity. So how are we going to describe all of these points? It will be all real numbers that are greater than or equal to -4.
Math is a wonderful thing. Math is a really cool